You may have seen our next guest last night on your TV as you were watching the State of the Union. And if you think you had it bad, well, this guy had to be there in the crowd to deal with it. He's Roger Marshall, Kansas U.S. Senator. He saw him sitting next to Ted Cruz from Texas and our friend on the other side of the state line, Josh Hawley from Missouri. Senator, good morning. Thanks for being here. How was it being in the chambers last night?
Pete, I've got to tell you, I took nausea medicine before I went in, but it wasn't enough.
I thought I saw you running up and down to the bathroom back and forth. I thought that was you.
Yeah, exactly. Really, I felt like I was yelled at for an hour and a half. It takes him 40 minutes to get to the most important problem in the country right now, which is our open southern border, and then he takes no responsibility, mispronounces Lincoln Riley's name, calls her a name of a football coach from USC. Used to be at Oklahoma, didn't he?
Yeah.
But Lincoln Riley. So it was a long night. I got to tell you, Pete. I told my wife afterwards. She went to it as well. I mean, we feel like we should be there, representing Kansas and give the speech its respect. But it was a political speech. I don't have to tell you that. Political speech, divisive, angry, I'm just appalled. And this morning, it's feeling worse rather than better. How did it sound at home? But I couldn't understand the guy.
Well, it didn't sound any better at home. And you know, you hit on some things I've been talking about this morning, which is it just came off like the speech was written by, you know, a brown grad student and not somebody who's living in the real world. When you start off with Ukraine, January 6th, and abortion, I mean, those are not top issues by anyone's estimation going into this election year. It's just not connecting with Main Street America or Main Street Kansas. Was that your read inside the room?
You got it. Again, just a very clearly divided room, nothing to unite us. Nothing that we could celebrate together. Pete, when I talk to Kansans back home, and you listen to them as well, and on your show you do a great job, their concerns are the open southern border, the economy, inflation would be number 2, constitutional rights, the attack on their constitutional rights would be number 3, and don't forget the biggest long-term threat to our future is our national debt. So all of his, as he describes the challenges ahead of us, boy, he's got a solution for you, and it's a big government solution. No, housing's too expensive. Well, we'll get the government to build more houses. College is too expensive. We'll just pay off your loans. It's big government solutions, and it is just so disturbing. I got to circle back. You know, he reminded me of Marie Antoinette up there yelling at the people saying, well, let them eat cake. Mm-hmm. Just no accountability whatsoever, no leadership. He's truly, truly a 40-year politician that's acting more like a king than he does a person out here trying to serve the American people.
Roger Marshall, Kansas U.S. Senator, is on KCMO after the State of the Union last night. We had Mark Alford on, Missouri Congressman, last hour, and he noticed a tenseness in the room that wasn't maybe there last year. You've been to a bunch of these going back to your time in the House. Where does the attitude, the tenseness in the room stack up compared to previous States of the Union you've been a part of?
Yeah, I thought last year's was pretty tense, but today, or last night, it's kind of one day to me, even more so. I think that's accurate. The fact that there was really, I can't think of anything unifying that he said. And again, you nailed the first 3 topics he mentions. What's unifying about that? What can we celebrate over the last 3 years? Do we celebrate how we left Afghanistan? Do we celebrate that mortgage payments have doubled in the last 3 years? Do we celebrate 10 million people crossing our border illegally? So, yeah, it was very tense and very, very much, again, a political speech getting ready for November. And I think that's just where my head is turning right now is can we limp through these last couple months and limp into November and get a new person in the White House?
How about the response, Senator Marshall, from your colleague Katie Britt out of Alabama? What did you? I don't know if you. I know you were there, so you may not have seen it. If you've seen clips of it, what did you think of her and her message?
Well, Katie is an outstanding young lady. So proud of her. I think that she hit the right remarks and the right concerns. I'm just going to be frank. I wish she had maybe mentioned President Trump. and talked about the future a little bit more, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. No, that's fine. So what about what about that future then? I mean, we've got 9-10 months, of course, until November. It's going to come in fast. We know it's going to be Biden against Trump round 2. What is your role going to be in that as we approach November and being back here in Kansas? And obviously, you're not up for re-election until 26. So how do you view yourself and your role these next bunch of months?
Yeah, well, we've had that discussion with President Trump, and they would like my wife and myself to go on the campaign trail a little bit with them and maybe be a surrogate from sorts. But whatever we can do to help President Trump get reelected, we're going to be doing that. So certainly we're going to keep our finger on the pulse in Kansas. But you're right. I need to go out on the trail. I think that Lane and my wife and I connect with the agriculture people, real people, really well, hardworking people. And Pete, really, we sat down yesterday. 3 Republicans and I sat down with 30 union leaders from across the country. Union members are looking for a home. That the Republican Party is becoming the face of folks that take their lunch pail to work with them, folks that small business people as well. So I think that's a sweet spot for us to reach out to as well. I grew up in a union town and have some good connections with those people, great respect for them. So trying to grow the tent is what I'm trying to say, is make the tent larger and bring a victory home for Americans.
And the only union reference we saw or heard from last night was Shawn Fain, the United Auto Workers Union. I know the president mentioned him, and something tells me that as political as that guy is, his members are not going to feel the same way as Shawn Fain does about President Biden.
Yeah, that you nailed it. The union members back home are, first of all, they're a little bit libertarian. These are friends of mine. They've got a fishing pole and a shotgun in their back of their pickup truck. They want to live this American dream, and the American dream is being taken out of reach for them. That you can no longer afford to buy a house. Your check, your paycheck is shrinking. All those types of things, and it really goes back to the COVID era when a lot of union members reached out to me and said, "Look, we do not want to take the COVID vaccine, and by the way, we'd like to go to work, and we'd like our children to go to school, and we'd like to go to worship church on Sundays." This libertarian streak came bulging out of the Kansas unions. We reached back to them and did everything we could help. So we're growing the tent as well. And you're right. I think that Joe Biden and the Democrats have left those union workers. And it's interesting you state that. Only one little admission to the labor unions last night.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you mentioned growing the tent. You know as well as I do the changes in some of the suburbs. Johnson County here in Kansas is a great example of that. How do Republicans, led by Donald Trump, try to maybe not win back a place like Johnson County, but close the gap? You don't want to be suffering enormous losses in places like Johnson County either. So how do you go about doing that? And I know you're going to be thinking about that for yourself here in a couple of years.
Right. I think it's continuing to try to reach out and connect with folks and do a lot of listening and showing compassion. And, I got to admit, President Trump makes it hard for me to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
His tweets, my mom both would say, my mom and dad both would say, we wish he would turn the Twitter off and tone it down a little bit. On the other hand, there's a lot of Americans that like the way that he's fighting for them as well. So we're going to just keep reaching out, doing the right thing. For me, I think about suburban moms. I think about the safety and security of their families and education. Their economy is relatively stable, but I think they're concerned about what their children are being taught. There's a lot of concern in Kansas about the public school system. I was in a public school. My kids in public schools. So I think we'll be reaching out on issues that impact them, and that would be education and as well as the safety and security of their families. We're seeing a stark difference between Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri as far as violence goes. And I think it's because of policy. I think it's people that, having sheriffs and police officers that are allowed to enforce the law. You have a DA there in Kansas City that's willing to enforce the law and take people down as well. Very concerned about human trafficking in the Kansas City metro area, Pete. We'll come back and talk about that another day.
Mm-hmm.
But we did a human trafficking roundtable in the Kansas City metro area, and we have an explosion of massage parlors where people are being human trafficked. So I think it's in the safety, security aspect and education is where we're going to reach soccer moms.
There you go. Roger Marshall, Kansas U.S. Senator. Good to have him on KCMO. Senator, thanks for the insight, and we always appreciate your time. Have a great weekend.
You bet, Pete. Well, we're just a month away from the draft. What position are we drafting in the first round?
32, dead last, right where you want to be when you're Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, there you. But what position? I mean,
what position? Literally, what position? You know what?
No.
I'm going wide receiver. I'm going with this kid Xavier Worthy out of Texas who just ran a 4.21 40-yard dash, which is, I know, not close to where you were back in your heyday, but it's pretty damn good.
All right, Pete. I'm gonna steal that one as well. I'm going wide receiver with you for now.
All right.
Good.
We'll talk to you then, Senator. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
He's Roger Marshall on KCMO Talk Radio.